Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Li-Ning JB4, and thanks to Kickzone for sending me a pair of these to check out. If you want to check out a pair for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as a coupon code. You know, the JB line is always been, to me, like just some uber premium basketball shoes. This one is no different, really same pedigree as the previous couple. Interesting choices in this one, interesting materials, interesting concept on these. Some people are really gonna love them. Some people might want a different feel on court, but can't deny kind of how just ultra premium these things are. Now, starting off in the uppers, it's weird. You know, I mean, it's cool, but it's just weird. There's so much foam paneling on these things. It just reminds me of a foamposite shoe. You know, it goes all the way around, and then it almost kind of makes like an external heel counter in the back. It's so thick. It reminds me of, this is the Way of Wade, the All City 13, the first one with like that big moon crater on the back. That's kind of what it reminds me of. It's not as bulbous and bulky, but it's just, that's just what it reminds me of. And it goes all the way around the shoe. So there's really no extra weaving or materials. Like the textile in the forefoot has a really interesting woven pattern, as you see on the microscope. But other than that, it's just paneling. You can kind of see in here how you got the foam in there complementing the internal heel counter. And I mean, it's not like you need all that much stiffness in there. The shoe is stiff enough on its own, but definitely bulks the rear foot up. Now, speaking of bulk, the tongue on these things, probably the best on the market right now, I would say, just because you look inside the tongue, it's like this two-tone tongue, or this two-layer tongue, I should say. And then it kind of carries over into the ankle collar. You got this ankle collar in the middle, then you got this felt material on the outside of which, honestly, I don't understand why that's there. They probably could have just gotten away with just doing the padding on the inside. But anyway, on the tongue, you really do get a nice bulky layer of padding under there. And then that goes to another big bulky layer of padding kind of right in the meat of the tongue as well. But then that all has huge breathing channels. Look at this on the breathability test. Fogs get out of the tongue like crazy. It does not get out of anywhere else though. So it really needs those breathing channels everywhere else. A ton of padding under the foot, and then that super dense weave, and then basically the, you know, Li-Ning's version of foamposite on the outside of it. But with that, you get a ton of padding in the rear foot as well, and that just sinks you into the shoe because there is no runner's knot in there, but heel slippage is just a big fat goose egg. There is none to speak of. I was able to get orthotics in there. You do kind of press into the shoe a little bit more with the orthotic, but the heel slippage is still really just nothing, right? It's really incredible with how these shoes are so low profile and just hold you in so well. You know, honestly, I like foam uppers. I like foamposite stuff. I just think it's an interesting way of getting containment. It's bulky. It's probably gonna hold on to a little bit of heat, but you know, for what it is, it does a good job. All right, getting into the midsole teardown, there is one new thing in this midsole from previous. I'll start with what's the same. It is still a full bed of boom foam, and you get a sandwich shank that is carbon fiber. That starts in the midfoot, goes into the forefoot as a true leaflet. And then in the rear foot, as you can see, you've got that blown rubber, kind of like quasi-foamposite. In Li-Ning's case, it's blown rubber. That almost acts as a carrier around the midsole. You can kind of see it here where both meet in the heel counter, and then around the shoe, right, it carries the midsole around the shoe. So that's kind of like the only new thing there is kind of the integrated boom with that blown rubber, kind of quote unquote, you know, quasi-foam pod. I think they call it IBR, but that molding around there. So that's kind of the difference there. Look on the tensiometer though, 86 newtons to get to 45 degrees. That is quite a bit. That is a stiff shoe. Obviously it's stiff, thick carbon fiber in the forefoot, plus the molding of the shoe too. The uppers, I do that too. If you look here, I mean, you can, like, the very tip is bending, but the rest of it. Now I will talk about, I'm not sure if I can talk about it now in the outsole or in the fit, but I guess I'll talk about it now, why it still isn't that hard to move up and down in these things, but torsional stability too, more like torsional rigidity on these things, and there's just no movement there at all. So the thing is though, if you look at it, you know, from the top down, as you can see, there is an angle of ascent here. Like if you look here, you know, it's definitely, it's not flat, right? I mean, there is definitely an angle there. And so a lot of shoes have an angle up at the very top, but most shoes are pretty flat to the ground in terms of court shoes, basketball, tennis, pickleball, volleyball, pretty flat to the ground so you can feel the ground. Look at the Sabrinas, right? Whereas in these, because You've got, I mean, the carbon fiber kind of undulates a little with the shoe, but it's kind of flat. And so the whole shoe undulates right here. So it's easier to roll, right? So it's easier to do this. And so that's what makes it so it doesn't feel like a stiff board, right? So you can kind of just see it like it kind of wants to move back and forth on the table here. And that's how it moves back and forth. And that's how you kind of get that bending action you would get on another shoe. Let's just say like the GT Cut, right? Where it just bends, right? And so you could just get like this, whereas in this shoe, it just kind of rolls. Now that's gonna be a lot more stiff, and some people like that stiff feeling, some people like the more flexible feeling. You know, you gotta know which one you like. Like I say in the bounce height test, 40 centimeters in the rear foot, 42 in the forefoot. That happens sometimes where you get the sandwiched carbon fiber, you actually do get a little bit more pop out of it versus just the boom foam alone. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty typical what you're seeing with thermoplastics and especially Li-Ning boom foam. So obviously these are gonna be diving boards. I mean, they're stiff diving boards, right? And so the boom foam combined with a 4-foot leaflet, to me, these are very, very similar to the Wave Weight 11, just a different upper tooling. Really, like that's kind of like the Wave Weight 11 seems to have been like the basis of this. And then they kind of just tooled the uppers, maybe just a little bit more angle of ascent in the 4-foot to allow a little bit more rolling in these, a little bit easier step to step. So, and like I said, when you got a shoe this stiff, that's really what you have to do to get them to, you know, so you can run and move easy enough. They're quick for sure, side to side. We'll talk about that in the outsole too. But remember, you're gonna have to want that stiff feeling. You gotta be okay with the shoe kind of artificially rolling you from step to step versus your own big toe joint doing that. So just like I said, some people are gonna love it. Some people are gonna want something more flexible. You know, just one more thing about the midsole before I get to the outsole. You know, we saw Steph Curry wearing these, and the more I think about it, the more I feel like this is kind of an easy transition for him, right? You got the ground contact unit, talk about in the outsole. I mean, this is obviously gonna have the similar grip to Curry's when flow shoes are new and they're actually tacky versus when they pick up dust. Then you got the 4-foot leaflet. It's the same as in the Curry line, but his is just plastic. So they're a little bit more flexible versus these, a little more rigid. But something tells me he probably found these ones to be a lot easier to get into from his shoes, right? An easier transition. And so it'd be interesting to see when Curry brand spins off into whatever it is, an independent brand, if it comes under Nike or Adidas or whatever, you know, if it becomes just a Curry brand itself. Be interesting to see if he takes stuff from the Curry line, from the Jimmy Butler line. I mean, it would be interesting because this is basically the same layout as Curry shoes, just with Pebex base foam and carbon fiber versus OCPs and plastic in the Curry line. I'll be getting into the outsole tread of the JB4. Once again, does not matter what the tread pattern is, as long as it's multi-directional, especially with these new cast polyurethane outsoles, using these different structures and compounds to achieve grip. Now, he has basically just his logo, and then it's basically just kind of like a barbed wire pattern around there. Basically just multi-directional. This is a very flat tread profile. It's a very thin profile, right, in terms of, I say shallow, not thin, but shallow. And so, you know, you look at it on the grip test ramp. I mean, it's up to 49 degrees. These things just are crazy. And the nice thing is even if they do pick up dust, because there is a lot of micro gridding in there, so a lot of places for dust to kind of collect, because it's flat, it's easy to wipe down. So I like that. You know, I think that it's weird though, because like GCUs, some colorways of GCUs, the type of compound, the type of polyurethane compound in here, they don't look like they're gonna be tacky just like to the naked eye, but then they just, you know, they're just super grabby, they're super sharp grip. So I do think this is a good blueprint. I know the Wave Weight 11, people had problems with dust pickup. The thing is about these flat tread profiles, I think the different colors of these cast polyurethane or these ground control units, I think they're gonna have different properties in terms of picking up dust. And like I said, when it's flat like this, you can just wipe it down so easily just with your hand. And so I do like that about that. These shoes are just wicked fast. I mean, they're so quick off the block, especially because look at the flange on these things. Like, talk about the elephant in the room. Look how sharp and wide it is. Sometimes you get these like pointed flanges that aren't very wide, and so it almost feels like you're like balancing on a point. Whereas in this one, it's so broad, and then it comes into such a large peak. You can see it down here too. It's just, I mean, just try to roll these things. It is so difficult, and you actually get a little bit of a rear foot flange. I know it's kind of hard to see when you're not looking at the shoe with the naked eye, but there is a rear foot flange here too. So even though the shoe is incredibly nimble, it's also incredibly stable. The thing is, you kind of need a flange this big for a shoe that's not flat to the ground, right? When you've got some undulation in there, right? Like I wouldn't consider this a rocker, you know, but it does definitely have some angle of ascent there. You know, it's easy to move, put it this way. It's not a rocker, but it's kind of like, it's the closest you're gonna get to a rocker because the rest of the shoe is flat on the ground, but you push up. And so I had to figure out like what a good name for that would be, like rocker assist or like semi-rocker or something, like yacht rock or yacht rocker. That's what we're gonna call them, yacht rockers. And so when we got a yacht rocker like this, you do kind of need a lot of that stability, because if not, the shoe is just gonna feel like a floppy mess. You're gonna start to kind of, no, I wouldn't say a floppy mess, but because the shoe is so stiff and sharp, if you start pushing anywhere sideways, the shoe's just gonna wanna turn, right? There's not gonna be any give, right? The shoe has no give, and so what is gonna give? Your ankle, right? So it kind of has to have this to kind of make up for that. But these do in spades. I am just blabbering along about the shoe. There's just so much to talk about with shoes like this because there's just so much in and out going on. So yeah, this is probably gonna be a longer video, but hopefully you're learning something. All right, getting into the fit of the JB4. Number one, they have a 18-degree inflare from rear foot to forefoot. These things are swooped in. Number two, they come in at 29 centimeters in length. They are just a hair long. In terms of metatarsal width, they come in at 9.6 centimeters. Toe box width, they come in at 9.5, so you do lose a millimeter from midfoot to toe box, and toe box taper 38 degrees, pretty similar. So really, like I said, everything about this shoe is just speed, 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 speed. That's why you see that swooped in nature, right? The inflare, as soon as you start seeing really large inflares in shoes, you know they're trying to make the shoe feel faster. And then like I said, it's not bad, you know, in terms of width. I honestly, I thought it was gonna be a lot worse. It really was not. The one thing I'll say is narrow medium foot, I would just go true to size. In terms of a 2E, I think you definitely can go up 1/2 size. They might start to get a little bit long on you. So if you got longer toes, should be okay, but they'll lock down okay up 1/2 size. I wouldn't be going up more than 1/2 size in these because of a little bit of the length, and because of the inflare, it's gonna start to feel like a clown shoe. 4E, might be a mismatch on these. I'd try to go up 1/2 size, but other than that, the only reason is because of the blown rubber on the uppers. It's gonna be a tough break-in. I matched this shoe's shape, so I did fine. You know, I really had no problems in these, to be honest. So but that's my foot shape. That's not necessarily gonna be yours. So do with that what you will, but they fit pretty similar to other Jimmy Butler shoes. It's just the uppers are not going to break in as quickly as the others. They will break in because it is just rubber, but it's gonna take a little bit. It's gonna be like it's gonna be like Nike foam posit, right? Once it breaks in, it's gonna mold around your foot really nice. So there's that too. In terms of the snake bitten foot, in terms of heel pain, yes. Arch pain, yes. Ball of foot pain, I would say if you have big toe arthritis, just generalized toe arthritis, things like that, they'll be fine. In terms of like actual like neuromas, ball of foot pain, things like that. I think with an orthotic, they're okay, but other than that, make sure you have an orthotic in there for sure. In terms of ankle sprainers, they're great. You know, they're awesome. This flange, I mean, how could they not be, right here? I mean, how could these not be good for ankle sprainers for sure? So, like I said, I would say, and interestingly enough, this one lace eyelet here on the medial side comes down. When you feel it, you can actually feel it strapping down. So if this hits the wrong spot on your foot, it's really gonna irritate a nerve. So everyone's gonna be different on that. I have no idea who's gonna, but I liked it because it felt like I was like really locked into the shoe. And I think that's what it's trying to do. But for some people that also might be annoying with some sort of, nervy issues, things like that. So, I would say, to me, I like them more than the previous Jimmy Butler a little bit, because I know that for a lot of people, once this upper breaks in, because I know how foam posit is, right? This is just a little bit lighter than foam posit, right? Remember, I think, what was I talking about? I did a video about LeBron and foam posits, and I said, they could just make it lighter. It would just be such an amazing product. And there you go, Li-Ning did it. And so I think this is gonna be really interesting when a lot of people start buying them and breaking them in over months at a time. How much molding do you get in the uppers? How comfortable is it over time? I think people are gonna do really well with these. Not 4Es, but I think a lot of other people are gonna do really nice with these. So yeah, love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below about these. Do you kind of see the same like way of weight 11 with like some different tooling, you know, that I see. So let me know in the comments down below. If you want to check out a shoe that's the complete opposite of these, shoe I alluded to earlier, the Nike GT Cut, go under the knife, make sure you click into this video right here and subscribe down below. See you in the next video.